The sun dipped low behind Westbourne Estate, bathing the mansion's marble towers in soft golden light. Luxury cars gleamed along the curved driveway. Laughter spilled from open doors, mingling with the clink of champagne glasses and the hum of old money. Everyone inside moved like clockwork, polished smiles, designer suits, crystal flutes balanced between manicured fingers. Then she arrived, a simple woman, 25 years old maybe. Her linen dress faded from time, brown flats, scuffed from long walks. A worn leather satchel clung to her side, stitched with memory rather than logos. At first, no one noticed her, but as she stepped onto the marble, the grand chandelier caught the paleness of her dress and the quiet strength in her gaze. Heads began to turn. Murmurs floated through the room like bitter perfume.
Lost the cleaning lady, did we?
Maybe she's here to scrub the floors.
The simple woman just smiled, soft, patient, and moved forward without a word. She touched the carved wood railings with reverence, paused to admire the velvet curtains, let her fingers trail lightly along the marble fireplaces. Because she wasn't here to gawk, she wasn't lost. She knew this place better than any of them, because once it had been hers, and tonight, whether they knew it or not, she had come home. The crowd tightened around her presence like a noose. A woman in a glittering gown wrinkled her nose and leaned toward a man with silver hair, probably wandered in off the street. She whispered loud enough for several heads to tilt and smirk. Near the velvet ropes, a young real estate agent clipboard, clutched like a weapon, hurried toward her stilettos, clicking angrily on the marble. "Miss," she said, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Tonight's viewing is by private invitation only." Her voice dripped condescension. The simple woman just nodded politely. "I understand," she said, her voice as gentle as falling snow. The agent blinked, thrown off by her calmness, before recovering with a tight-lipped smirk. Around the grand hall, laughter muffled behind champagne flutes. Guests casually lifted phones, snapping quick photos of the lost girl for their group chats. In the corner, a young man in a velvet jacket chuckled cruelly. Maybe she's hoping for leftovers after the auction. Or maybe she's dreaming she'll marry rich tonight. The simple woman didn't flinch. She moved through the rooms with the grace of someone walking through memory. At a tall portrait, the estate's original owners, she paused. Her gray-blue eyes reflected something deeper, something the others were too blind to see. This wasn't a visit. This was a reckoning, and they had no idea how close they were to losing everything. The chandeliers dimmed as the auctioneer took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice rich, "welcome to the final bidding for the Westbourne Estate, a legacy like no other." Catalogs rustled, paddles gripped tighter. The simple woman stood near the edge, hands resting on her satchel. Opening bid, $10 million. Without hesitation, a tall man in a charcoal suit raised his paddle. 10 million. 11, countered a woman dripping in diamonds. 12 down. 13. The numbers climbed sharp fast, a war of pride masked behind smiles. At 20 million, the crowd thinned. Only a few serious predators remained. The agent sneered across the room. "Still here, sweetheart? You'll need more than pocket change." A snicker traveled through the bidders. The auctioneer wiped his forehead. 22 million, do I hear 23? From her corner, the simple woman shifted just slightly. The satchel tilted open, revealing thick legal documents. But no one noticed. They were too busy clawing for the throne. What no one knew was this. Years ago, when the Marlowe name collapsed under scandal and loss, Eleanor's grandfather had taken one final act of love. Beneath lawsuits and betrayal, he hid a single seed. A private trust beyond greedy hands. A trust crafted not for rescue, but for a promise. For Eleanor, when she is ready, it read in his trembling hand. Not when the world demands it. Not when she begs. When she stands unbowed and claims not walls, but soul. For a decade it waited, while Eleanor lived simply dusty bookstore shifts, borrowed light studies. The trust grew, stocks matured. A forgotten tech investment exploded, and 3 weeks ago the call had come. A solicitor, old Solemn, summoned her to a sun-faded office. Inside, a full accounting, a cashier's check, a letter. They can steal the walls, they can never steal who you are. Come home, Ellie. Outside, the world still sneered at scuffed shoes. Inside, Eleanor, a reckoning blazed. Tonight, under chandeliers and hollow laughter, they would lose not just an auction, but the illusion they ever owned this place. The heartbeat of Westbourne had always belonged to her. They just hadn't seen it until now. A soft voice cut clean through the rising tension. 30 million. The room froze, every head turned. The simple woman stood there, serene hand raised, not trembling. $30 million, she repeated, calm as a gavel strike. The diamond-clad woman's mouth dropped open. The man in charcoal stared unblinking. The auctioneer's gavel hovered midair. Going once. Silence. Going twice. Still nothing. The gavel fell. Sold to the lady in the linen dress. Glass shattered in the distance. Whispers rose like smoke. The simple woman produced a cashier's check. No negotiations, no hesitation. With one signature, Westbourne belonged to her, but she wasn't finished yet. Not even close. The clerk stumbled over the deed hands, trembling. She signed with steady fingers. The auctioneer voice, tight, asked, "Miss, your full name?" She straightened the setting sun, catching her chestnut braid. She smiled. Small, graceful, and spoke, "My name is Eleanor Marlowe." A single name detonated like dynamite. Marlowe. The name once engraved into Westbourne's gates. Gasps echoed. She can't be. I thought they were ruined. Eleanor opened her satchel, pulling out a faded photograph. Her grandfather standing proudly on the same marble steps, a young Eleanor in his arms. "My family built Westbourne," she said, voice soft but unshakable. "Stone by stone, dream by dream." Silence fell like a guillotine. She tucked the photo away and whispered, "You laughed when you thought I had nothing?" A pause. "You were wrong." Not vengeance, but aching sadness filled her eyes. They had mocked the soul of Westbourne without ever seeing it, and now they would live with that shame forever. The golden light faded as Eleanor gathered the deed and tucked it into her satchel. Around her glittering guests stood frozen relics of a crumbling age. No more laughter, no more whispers, just hollow vanity crashing down. Everett Marsh, once smug, stumbled forward.
"Miss Marlowe, please, let me congratulate."
Eleanor turned to gaze, gentle but immovable. "There's no need," she said, voice velvet over steel. "You already said everything you truly thought of me." The words cut soft and precise. Without another glance, she walked slowly across the ballroom, her linen dress brushing marble in memory. The chandeliers flickered above, dimming as she passed. By the massive oak doors, she paused, tracing her fingers along the carvings her grandfather once designed. Not a farewell, a homecoming. Outside, the night air kissed her cheeks. The valet rushed, but she shook her head with a warm smile. She needed no limousine, no grand carriage, only the open road. Behind her, the elite withered, trapped in glitter and regret, and Eleanor Marlowe walked alone into the dusk, not as a guest, not as a beggar, but as the true soul of Westbourne. The fairy lights faded behind her, blurring into a forgotten song. At the estate's edge, she paused beneath the ancient oak. It was here her grandfather had first dreamed Westbourne. Not for power, not for gold, but for belonging, for roots. She pressed her palm against the bark, feeling the heartbeat beneath. A memory surfaced, a wild-haired girl laughing barefoot through halls, her grandfather smiling from the stairs. "One day, little Ellie," he had whispered, "this will be yours. Not because of your name, but because you will know what it means to truly belong." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away. Tonight was not for sorrow. It was for honor, for promises kept. Westbourne did not belong to the highest bidder. It belonged to the one who remembered why it was built. And so Eleanor Marlowe, in her wrinkled dress and scuffed shoes, walked into the night, not as a conqueror, not as a queen, but as a keeper of sacred things. Behind her, Westbourne stood silent, watchful home. And somewhere in the hush between the stars, a promise whispered back, "Welcome home, little Ellie." The first blush of dawn bled across the horizon, because every silent seed planted today would one day become the mighty forests of tomorrow.